Have you ever believed that love could break through even the strongest walls? On the breathtaking cliffs of California stands the Montenegro estate, home to Gabriel Montenegro, a cold and guarded billionaire who trusts no one. But everything changes the day an accidental moment on his security camera reveals a young woman who will challenge his world and heal his heart. This is The Billionaire's Accidental Love, a story of trust, redemption, and a love that defies the odds. Stay with us until the end to experience a romance filled with secrets, passion, and a love story that begins where no one expected. The Montenegro estate stretched across 47 acres of pristine California coastline. From a distance, the mansion rose like a crown of glass and steel upon the rugged cliffs, its reflective walls catching the Pacific sun until it shimmered, like a mirage. To outsiders, it was a fortress, impenetrable and cold. But for Gabriel Montenegro, it was both sanctuary and prison. At 34, Gabriel had built an empire from nothing. Montenegro Industries, a technology conglomerate, was the pulse of Silicon Valley. Business magazines called him a visionary. Competitors whispered the word ruthless. Yet those who saw him only in headlines would never glimpse the loneliness behind his steel-gray eyes. Since betrayal had shattered his trust 5 years earlier, Gabriel had surrounded himself with walls, literal and metaphorical. Inside his private office on the 3rd floor, the world felt under control. Monitors displayed security feeds, stock, prices, and global market data. Every flicker of information was a piece of power in Gabriel's hands. Trust was a currency he no longer invested in easily. Only a few people had earned it. Among them, Mrs. Catherine Winters, his head housekeeper, who had served the Montenegro family for decades. That morning, Mrs. Winters knocked softly on his door. "Come in," Gabriel said without looking away. From the glowing monitors, she entered with her usual composed grace, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. "I wanted to inform you about our new cleaning specialist," she said. "Luna Hayes started yesterday. She'll be handling the guest wing and the observatory room." Gabriel turned finally, curiosity flickering behind his cool gaze. "Background check complete?" Mrs. Winters nodded. "She's 26, graduated from community college with honors while working 2 jobs to support her younger sister. No criminal record, excellent references, she's hardworking, respectful. She reminds me a bit of your mother at that age." For a moment, the mention of Maria Montenegro softened his expression. "Very well," he said. "Make sure she knows the restricted areas." Down in the guest wing, Luna Hayes pushed her cleaning cart along the marble hallways, still marveling at the opulence around her. The Montenegro estate was unlike anything she had ever seen. Vaulted ceilings, original artwork, furniture that probably cost more than her entire apartment building, but Luna wasn't intimidated. She had learned long ago that dignity came not from wealth, but from how one faced life's hardships. Petite in stature, but fierce in determination, Luna wore her gray uniform with quiet pride. Her chestnut hair was pulled into a practical ponytail, her brown eyes bright with warmth. This job was more than employment. It was a lifeline. The pay would help her sister Emma through college, and that was all that mattered. The observatory room stole her breath. A circular chamber crowned by a glass dome, it offered a sweeping view of the Pacific Ocean. Morning light spilled across polished surfaces, making the telescope gleam like a sentinel of the stars. As she dusted, Luna felt a spark of awe. Even in the grandest spaces, she could find beauty. But beauty was fleeting. The cleaning solution slipped from her hand, splashing across her uniform. The harsh chemical burned against her skin. Panic surged. She couldn't risk a rash, not when she needed this job. Glancing around, she saw no one. The guest wing was deserted. Mrs. Winters had mentioned that Mr. Montenegro would be in meetings all morning. Finding a corner behind a large sculpture, Luna quickly unbuttoned the soaked uniform, peeling it away from her skin. The chemical had soaked through to her undergarments. She moved with efficient grace, changing into her spare clothes as fast as she could, her mind only on returning to work. Unbeknownst to her, a nearly invisible camera watched from the shadows of the room. 4 floors above, Gabriel reviewed the security feeds. He was scanning through footage from the previous night when the observatory camera lit up his screen. He clicked instinctively, eyes widening at what he saw. Luna. Unaware, vulnerable, changing. There was nothing provocative in her actions, only the innocence of a young woman dealing with an accident. Gabriel's finger froze on the mouse. A jolt of anger, at himself, at his system, shot through him. These cameras were meant for protection, not violation. In that instant, he acted. The footage was deleted, every copy erased from the servers. The observatory camera was disabled, permanently. For the first time in years, the billionaire felt something beyond control. He felt guilt, and something else he dared not name. Hours later, Gabriel still couldn't shake the image of Luna, not what the camera had shown, but the memory of how she had looked when they were briefly introduced the day before. She had met his gaze directly, unafraid, uncalculating. So few people ever did. By afternoon, he had made a decision that surprised even him. "Mrs. Winters," he said when she entered his office, "please ask Luna Hayes to come to my office at 4 o'clock. Alone." When Luna knocked at the appointed hour, she was visibly nervous. Gabriel gestured for her to sit. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Montenegro?" "Yes," he said. "Luna, there was an incident today involving our security system that you need to be aware of." Her face drained of color. "The cameras," she whispered. Gabriel nodded. "This morning, in the observatory, you believed you were alone, as you had every right to. The fault is mine for failing to ensure your privacy. I deleted the footage immediately. No one else saw it. The camera has been disabled. You have my word." Tears gathered in her eyes, but she held his gaze steadily. "Thank you," she whispered. "You did nothing wrong," Gabriel said, his voice softer than he intended. "You handled an accident with professionalism. If you wish, I can reassign you to another area." Luna shook her head. "No, Mr. Montenegro, I appreciate your honesty and the way you handled this. I'd like to stay." Something shifted in Gabriel's chest at her words. Warmth, trust. A crack in the walls he had built so carefully. "Very well," he said. "But if you ever feel uncomfortable here, you come to me directly." As she stood to leave, Luna hesitated. "Thank you for being a gentleman," she said softly. Gabriel watched her go, the sun setting in a blaze of orange beyond the glass walls. For the first time in years, his thoughts were not consumed with business, but with a woman who had brought light into his world. 3 weeks passed since the day Gabriel Montenegro had confessed the truth about the observatory camera. During that time, something had changed inside the mansion. The estate, which once felt like a monument to isolation, began to stir with an unfamiliar warmth. Luna Hayes moved through the halls like a gentle breeze, unnoticed by many, yet felt by everyone. Her presence seemed to soften the edges of the Montenegro household. The staff found themselves smiling more, and even Gabriel, the man who carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders, seemed to breathe easier. He would never admit it, but he had started timing his morning coffee breaks to coincide with Luna's cleaning schedule. Sometimes he would walk through the guest wing under the guise of inspecting renovations or checking on the art. In truth, he was seeking glimpses of her, brief moments when she would greet him with that warm smile that made the cold mansion feel alive. Rebecca Torres, Gabriel's sharp-eyed assistant, noticed the change. The new cleaning specialist is thorough, isn't she? She said one morning, catching Gabriel watching Luna from his office window. Gabriel turned sharply. Her name is Luna, and yes, her work is exemplary. Rebecca's eyebrow arched. Slightly, but she said nothing more. She was too perceptive not to sense the shift in her employer's demeanor, but she was also too loyal to interfere. World. It was Thomas Mitchell, the estate manager, who first mentioned Luna's questions about the artwork. She has quite the eye for detail, he said. Asked me about the Monet in the East Corridor. Not just its value, its history, its brushwork. She sees things most don't. That intrigued Gabriel. The Monet had been his mother's favorite, a painting she would stand before for hours, whispering that beauty could heal wounds no medicine could touch. The next day, Gabriel did something unprecedented. He invited Luna to coffee in the morning room. When she arrived, she looked both nervous and radiant. She wore her usual gray uniform, but her hair was arranged in a soft bun, and there was a quiet dignity in the way she carried herself. "I hope you don't mind," Gabriel said, gesturing to the table set with fresh croissants and fruit. "I thought we could talk," she blinked in surprise. Thank you, Mr. Montenegro. I hope I haven't done anything wrong." "Quite the opposite," Gabriel said, pouring coffee for them both. "I've heard you're interested in art. Tell me about that." At first, Luna hesitated, but something in his tone encouraged her to open up. She spoke of her community, college studies in art history, of her dream to work in a museum, of the sacrifices she had made to raise her sister Emma after their parents died. Her words were soft but steady, revealing strength forged from hardship. Gabriel found himself listening, not just hearing but truly listening, for the first time in years. "And your dreams of working in a museum?" he asked. Luna smiled wistfully. "Maybe someday. Right now, I'm just grateful to have steady work. Your insurance plan helps Emma with her textbooks. That means everything to me." The conversation flowed easily. They spoke of art, literature, music. Luna's insights surprised him. She spoke not as someone who had merely studied beauty, but as someone who felt it deeply. When she described the Monet, saying, "It makes me think of hope, like no matter how dark things get, there's always beauty waiting to be discovered." Gabriel's chest tightened. Those were his mother's words, reborn in a different voice. From that day forward, their coffee meetings became routine. Gabriel told himself it was simply to keep an eye on a promising employee, but deep down he knew better. Luna was becoming more than just a part of his household. She was becoming a part of his life. Not everyone welcomed the change. Diana Frost, a member of the mansion's administrative staff, had long harbored hopes of catching Gabriel's attention. Beautiful, ambitious, and accustomed to getting what she wanted, Diana seethed as she watched Gabriel's growing fondness for Luna. She began to watch Luna carefully, waiting for her to slip, to make a mistake that could be exploited. But Luna was meticulous, professional, and, much to Diana's frustration, well-liked by everyone. The only chink Diana could find was Gabriel himself. The coffee meetings, the private conversations, the shared smiles, she twisted them into whispers. Quietly, she began planting seeds of gossip among the staff, suggesting that Luna was using her charm to climb into Gabriel's good graces. Meanwhile, Luna remained unaware. She was simply grateful for the unexpected friendship that had blossomed between her and the man she had once viewed as untouchable. Gabriel, too, found himself lowering his guard. He started asking about employee welfare, smiling more during meetings, even taking an interest in the lives of those around him. Mrs. Winters noticed the change and approved quietly. Thomas, the estate manager, nodded knowingly when Rebecca mentioned Gabriel's softened demeanor. "She's good for him," Thomas said simply. "Haven't seen him this alive in years." Autumn arrived with a blaze of gold along the California coast. The Montenegro estate glowed under the softer light, and Gabriel felt as though the season mirrored the changes inside him. One morning, as Luna poured coffee into delicate china, cups, Gabriel spoke with an unfamiliar hesitation. "I've been thinking about your background in art history," he said, watching her reaction. Luna's eyes lit up. "Really?" "I'm considering donating part of my collection to establish a scholarship fund at the community college," he continued. "But I need someone who understands the pieces not just in value but in meaning. Would you help me evaluate them for a heartbeat?" Luna was speechless. "You would trust me with something so important?" "I can't think of anyone better," Gabriel said simply. Over the next weeks, they walked together through the mansion's galleries, Luna explaining brushstrokes, historical contexts, and symbolism with an enthusiasm that was infectious. She made Gabriel see his own collection through new eyes, not as investments, but as stories. During those sessions, their conversations deepened. They shared laughter over coffee, exchanged book recommendations, even discovered a shared love for classical music and old films. Each day, the walls around Gabriel's heart crumbled a little more. While Gabriel and Luna's bond grew, Diana Frost's jealousy festered. The more she watched, the more determined she became to destroy what she could not have. She started collecting evidence, photographs of their meetings, notes about their time together, anything that could be twisted into scandal. Then she compiled it into a report and handed it to Mrs. Winters under the guise of protecting Gabriel's reputation. Mrs. Winters frowned as she read, her lips pressed into a thin line. She loved Luna like a granddaughter, but the implications of favoritism or impropriety were serious. Reluctantly, she approached Gabriel in his office. "Gabriel, we need to discuss Luna Hayes," she said, her voice unusually stern. His head snapped up. "What about her?" "There are concerns being raised," Mrs. Winters explained. "The frequency of your meetings, the time spent alone, it's creating talk among the staff. Perhaps it would be best to create some distance." Gabriel stood, tension running through him like a wire. The thought of losing those moments with Luna felt unbearable. Yet he also knew Mrs. Winters was right. Luna's reputation could be damaged by whispers. For the rest of the day, Gabriel sat in silence, battling himself. Finally, he made the hardest decision he had faced in years. That night, he sent word through Rebecca. The art evaluation. Project is complete. Morning meetings are no longer required. Luna received the message with grace, but the light dimmed in her eyes. She continued her work with dignity, but every step through the halls felt heavier. She avoided Gabriel, and when their paths did cross, she kept her gaze lowered. Gabriel tried to focus on business. He filled his schedule with back-to-back meetings, late-night calls, and endless paperwork. But the mansion grew cold again. Without Luna's laughter, without her presence, it felt like a cage once more. Alina Vasquez, the kind-hearted kitchen worker, noticed Luna's sadness. One afternoon, she found the young woman staring out at the ocean from the staff break room. "Mija, what's wrong?" Alina asked gently. Luna tried to smile, but tears welled in her eyes. "I think I made a mistake," she whispered. "I let myself believe Mr. Montenegro saw me as more than an employee. But I was wrong. The moment there was talk, he cut me off." Alina's eyes softened. "Sometimes men like him think they're protecting you when they push you away. Don't mistake his silence for indifference." Luna shook her head. "I can't afford to lose this job over foolish hopes." Meanwhile, Gabriel sat in his office, restless and hollow. Thomas, the estate manager, finally broke the silence during a meeting. "Sir, if I may, protecting someone doesn't always mean leaving them. Sometimes it means standing beside them." Gabriel stared at him, the words sinking deep. That night, Gabriel walked into the observatory room, the place where it had all begun. The stars shone above the glass dome, and for the first time, he admitted to himself the truth. He was in love with Luna Hayes, and he would no longer let fear decide for him. The Montenegro mansion buzzed with whispers. Diana Frost's subtle campaign had begun to bear its ugly fruit. Staff exchanged knowing glances when Luna walked by. Conversations stopped abruptly at her approach. Even the maintenance workers murmured. Cruel speculations. At first, Luna tried to ignore them. She worked harder, polished surfaces until they gleamed, stayed late to ensure perfection. But the words seeped into her heart like poison. One afternoon, she overheard two gardeners laughing. "Must be nice to have the boss wrapped around your finger," one said. "She probably used more than her charm to get there," the other snickered. The blood drained from her face. She retreated to the observatory, the one place that had always felt like her sanctuary. There, under the dome of stars, she cried silently, the weight of humiliation pressing down on her. Gabriel found her there an hour later. He had been searching for her, driven by an urgency he couldn't ignore. "Luna," he said softly. She looked up quickly, wiping her eyes. "Mr. Montenegro, I should get back to work." "Please don't. Go," he said, stepping closer. Luna stood stiffly, her professional mask in place. "If this is about the rumors, I want you to know I've done nothing to encourage them. I've conducted myself appropriately at all times." "I know that," Gabriel said firmly. "The rumors are lies, malicious lies." "It doesn't matter," she whispered. "People will keep talking. Maybe it's best if I leave." "No!" Gabriel's voice was sharp, filled with emotion. "It wouldn't be best for anyone, especially not for me." Luna blinked, stunned by the rawness. In his tone, Gabriel took a deep breath. "I've been a coward, Luna. I told myself I was protecting you by staying away, but I was only protecting myself from being hurt again. The truth is, I've fallen in love with you." Her breath caught. "Not because you're beautiful, though you are. Not because you're kind and intelligent, though you're both. I love the way you see the world. I love your strength, your integrity, the way you forgive. I love you, Luna Hayes." Tears filled her eyes again, but they were no longer from sadness. "Gabriel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I tried not to feel this way. I told myself to keep it professional. But I love you too." He reached out slowly, giving her the chance to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her, tenderly at first, then with the intensity of weeks of suppressed longing. When they finally parted, Luna rested her forehead against his chest, hearing the steady beat of his heart. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "Now," Gabriel said, holding her close, "we stop hiding." The next morning, Gabriel did something no one expected. He called an all-staff meeting in the mansion's grand hall. Employees gathered, murmuring with curiosity. Diana stood in the front row, confident her scheme was about to be validated. Gabriel stood tall, his presence commanding but his tone warm. "I've called you here to address the rumors circulating about Luna Hayes and myself," he began. The room fell silent. "First, let me make this clear. Luna has conducted herself with complete professionalism since the day she arrived. Any suggestion otherwise is a malicious lie. I will not tolerate gossip or disrespect toward her or anyone else in this household." His gaze swept the room, landing briefly on Diana, whose face paled. "Second," Gabriel continued, "yes, my relationship with Luna has grown beyond professional respect. I have fallen in love with her. She has asked nothing of me except to do her job well, and I will not allow anyone to tarnish her integrity." Gasps rippled through the staff. "I know some may find this unusual, but we are both adults, capable of making our own choices. If anyone has a problem with this, they may speak to me directly. But understand this. Anyone caught spreading lies or harassment will be dismissed immediately. Diana shifted uncomfortably, avoiding his eyes. Gabriel's words had exposed her without naming her. As the staff dispersed, Luna stood near the back, tears shining in her eyes. Gabriel walked to her, took her hand, and said softly, "How do you feel about being publicly claimed by a stubborn billionaire?" Terrified, she laughed through her tears. "And exhilarated. I've never been more sure of anything in my life," Gabriel said, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Mrs. Winters smiled warmly from the side. "If I may, dear," she said to Luna, "I think it's time you started calling him Gabriel instead of Mr. Montenegro." From that day forward, Luna Hayes was no longer just a staff member in the Montenegro estate. She became its heartbeat. The whispers that had once followed her faded quickly, replaced by admiration. Even the most skeptical staff could not deny the authenticity of the bond between her and Gabriel. As autumn deepened, Gabriel introduced Luna to new parts of his world. He took her to art exhibitions, charity events, and private dinners with business associates. At first, Luna felt out of place, standing among people in glittering gowns and sharp suits, but Gabriel's reassuring hand in hers gave her strength. Everywhere they went, Gabriel made it clear Luna was not a secret. She was the woman he loved. Meanwhile, the art scholarship project blossomed. Together, they curated pieces from Gabriel's collection, each chosen for its power to inspire. During their work, Luna's passion shone, and Gabriel could see how deeply she cared for the future of students like her younger self. "You're giving them hope," Gabriel told her one evening as they finalized the selections. "You're giving them opportunity," she replied softly. "That's even greater." The project became the Montenegro Foundation for Arts Education, and its launch event was set to coincide with the unveiling of the donated artwork. It was Luna's first time standing in front of a crowd as something other than an employee. Her voice trembled at first, but as she spoke about the transformative power of art, her confidence grew. Gabriel watched with pride. She wasn't just part of his world. She was shaping it. As winter approached, the estate glowed with festive warmth. Gabriel and Luna spent evenings walking through the rose gardens wrapped in scarves, talking about everything from business strategies to childhood dreams. It was during one of these walks that Gabriel stopped suddenly. "Luna," he said, his breath visible in the cool air, "you've changed my life. You've given me back something I thought I'd lost forever." She smiled softly. "And what's that?" "Hope." He didn't propose then. Not yet. But in that moment, both of them knew it was only a matter of time. Not everyone stayed to witness their happiness. Diana Frost resigned quietly the week after Gabriel's public announcement. She left behind an envelope with her severance agreement and no farewell notes. Few missed her. The mansion, once a place of cold efficiency, now thrummed with joy. Even the staff felt the difference. Gabriel was no longer just the intimidating boss. He had become a man who smiled, who asked about their families, who laughed. Mrs. Winters, though still the dignified head housekeeper, often watched the couple with misty eyes. "Your parents would be proud of you, Gabriel," she said one evening. He nodded, squeezing Luna's hand. "I hope so." 1 year after the day they first spoke in the observatory room, Gabriel brought Luna back to that same place. The dome was lit only by the stars above and the soft glow of candles. "Do you remember the first time you stood here?" Gabriel asked. Luna smiled. "How could I forget? I was terrified. And I was falling," Gabriel said, his voice thick with emotion. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Luna Hayes," he said, dropping to one knee. "You brought light back into my world. You helped me become the man I was always meant to be. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. 1,000 times yes. The ring was unlike any she had ever seen, a rare blue diamond surrounded by smaller stones, arranged like constellations, as if the night sky itself had been captured for her. Their kiss under the stars was long and full of promise. 5 years passed, and the Montenegro estate no longer felt like a fortress. It was a home filled with laughter, art, and love. The Montenegro Foundation had grown into one of the most respected charitable organizations in California, funding arts and music programs for underprivileged communities. Luna, now Luna Montenegro, served as its executive director, blending grace and intelligence in every decision she made. Emma graduated from Berkeley and joined the foundation, developing environmental education projects. Gabriel supported her efforts, funding marine conservation programs in her name. Mrs. Winters, now semi-retired, became Sophia Montenegro's beloved nanny. Sophia, Gabriel, and Luna's daughter filled the halls with baby laughter. The observatory room had been transformed into a nursery where she napped under the same stars that had witnessed her parents' love story. Alina Vasquez, promoted to head of household staff, often joked that the mansion finally felt alive. One evening, as the sun set over the ocean, Gabriel and Luna sat in the morning room, watching Sophia sleep in Luna's arms. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been reviewing that security footage that day?" Luna asked. Gabriel smiled, wrapping his arms around them both. "I prefer to think that somehow we would have found each other anyway. Love has a way of breaking through walls." "Even accidentally?" she teased. "Especially accidentally," he said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. As the stars appeared in the darkening sky, the Montenegro family sat together in perfect contentment, living proof that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the most unexpected moments.